Hey guys, Buildzoid here, and we're back with the 96 gig Corsair DDR5 memory kit, except this time we're on a different motherboard, and the reason for it is this comment right here, which, yeah, I mean, you can read it yourself, but anyway, so yeah, when I read that comment, it just kind of occurred to me, well, this would be rather easy to do. I can literally just copy the settings off of the live mixer onto the HDV, and like, they'll work. And work they did. So anyway, let's quickly go over the system specs. So the CPU is still the same 7950X that I used last time, which I purchased. The motherboard is an Asrock B650M-HDV/M.2, which I also purchased, so big thank you to the channel supporters for making purchases like that possible. The memory kit is a Corsair Vengeance RGB 2x48 6000 CL30 kit. That was provided by Corsair, so big thank you to them. And the memory chips that it uses are Hynix 24 gigabit M.2, right? So this is a dual rank setup that we're running here. Yeah, so that's the system specs. And this time I had the idea to not stop the memory stress test. So we actually get a look at the memory temperatures. Now, the room temperature is at around 20 degrees Celsius, and the memory sticks are at like 44 and 46. And that's with a fan sitting on them, right? In a room that's at 20 degrees Celsius, like air temperature. And the reason I point this out is like, well, if you had this in a case, or if you know it's the summer and you don't have AC, those temperatures would be significantly higher. Like if the ambient air temperature was like 30 degrees, even with the fan sitting on the memory sticks, they would be running at like 56 degrees instead of 46 degrees, right? And the reason I bring that up is that potentially like can significantly affect the stability of especially timings like TREFI. And also, like, these sticks are running pretty warm even with the fan sitting right on top of them. I mean, like, 46 degrees isn't particularly insanely high for memory. Like, yeah, that's not exactly an insanely high temperature, but if I took the fan off, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if these ended up at like 80 degrees or something. Though I don't think they'd get to 80 degrees because I'm pretty sure they would crash before we get to that point. But yeah, so that's something to keep in mind is if you're, you know, overclocking memory and you have a case with a hot running GPU, your memory temperatures while the GPU is under load might be significantly higher than with the GPU idle, right? And that can significantly affect stability. So anyway, I guess at this point we can stop Karhu, and you'll also notice that Karhu's now run for like a day and 14 hours, something I would never dare dream of doing on an Intel system, unless I was running that Intel system at similar settings to what we're running here. Except, well, we'll not get into that. But anyway, so yeah, one day, 14 hours, no errors, memory stayed under 50 degrees Celsius the entire time. You will notice there is that like temperature bug again, which, yeah, that happens. And you'll notice that this memory stick, for whatever reason, was staying cooler during the run by like 2 degrees. So you'll actually notice this one also has the I think that's still the temperature bug, but it's like, there's like increments to that temperature bug where it's like, it hits specific temperatures. So like 63.8 is the high one, and then I think 47.8 is like the low one, and there's also another one that's even higher, which is I think like 72 point something. That shows up if your memory sticks are above 50 degrees, but or is it like 79.8? There's some like 70, and I'm assuming if the memory sticks were at like 60 degrees that there'd be a glitch to like 90 or something potentially. But anyway, yeah, also you'll notice that the memory sticks somehow reached a minimum temperature of 16 degrees, which is physically impossible. The room was never that cold. I would be very upset if the air temperature was that low. So anyway, but yeah, so absolutely insane Karhu run because, you know, I just sort of like I thought I'd get around to shooting this video sooner than I did because I was like, oh, I'll just run like 12 hours. It doesn't need to be as extensive as the test I did on the live mixer because I'm just rerunning the same settings that I used on the live mixer. So like, you know, I'm not going to run another day and then a day and 14 hours later here we are, and yeah, there's still no errors. So I guess the settings hold up, so that's nice to know, even though that wasn't really like an intent. Like, I thought I'd be recording the video after the test ran for 12 hours, but evidently I'm very effective at getting stuff done, so here we are. Um, but yeah, so Carhu passed, no errors. Also, this was with the CPU cache option enabled. Y-Cruncher, just a 2 hour, over 2 hour run. So yeah, that's just part of the like, oh, that I don't need to stress test this as long because like we're just running settings that I've already validated on a different motherboard, and so you know, I would expect them to work without too many issues. Because once you get into like, well, okay, I should not say that because with like if I compare my AMD memory overclocking experience to like my Intel memory overclocking experience, where like on Intel you change motherboards and everything is different. Nothing works anymore. And like that can be even motherboards from the same manufacturer. It's just like the behavior is wildly different, and also like BIOS version to BIOS version, it's wildly different. And you think something is stable for 16 hours, and then at the 17th hour it spits out 5 errors because Intel memory controllers. So anyway, whereas with AMD, my experience has been like I have seen, especially like pushing 2-to-1 mode, that like you could still get like one error at like 16 hours or something stupid like that. But in 1-to-1 mode, once it passes like 8 hours, it's probably gonna never error again, unless like, you know, something goes wrong with the system physically. Because yeah, the memory controller doesn't just spontaneously generate errors if you run it for too long, has been my experience. So yeah, like one day, 14 hours is just fine. So anyway, Y-Cruncher VT3 for over 2 hours, and then I think that's it here. Um, so yeah, let's restart and take a look at the settings. Although one thing that's interesting with this board to me is that it reboots incredibly fast. Or at least it boots up really fast. The restart's obviously taking a while here, but... wait, do we have the troubleshooting? Where are the trouble... Oh, they're on the bottom edge. Okay, well, you can't see them. Actually, maybe you could see them. Did I miss the BIOS? Oh, I didn't. Oh, you could have seen them. Oh, well, that's too bad. Anyway, so here we are in the BIOS, on the latest BIOS version, and at least it was the latest when I started this stress test. I don't know, maybe Asrock released another BIOS update in the, like, while, you know, I ran Carhu for a day. But, anyway, so yeah, that's the BIOS version. And then for the settings, DDR5-6200, memory context restore still enabled, VDDIO at 1.4, VDD at 1.52, VDDQ at 1.4, so literally the same voltages that I used on the live mixer. 2066 on the Infinity Fabric, memory controller equal to memory clock, and then 1.25 volts on the SoC, which, again, a little bit high for... Well, actually, for this CPU... Yeah, for this CPU, it's a little bit high. I have a different... Like, say my 17900X would actually require 1.25 volts to work at 6200. Or, like, this chip can do 6200 at somewhat lower voltage than my 17900X. So, that's the main point here, is that... And this is a bit high for... Like, this is unnecessarily high for the CPU. Then CCD and IOD voltages just 0.9 again, like I used on the live mixer, and then VDDP at 1.1 volts, again, like I used on the live mixer. I was honestly actually kind of worried that VDDP might actually be different in terms of its voltage requirements on this board from the live mixer, just because we are going from like an 8-layer daisy chain topology to a 6-layer 1-dimper channel, and the VDDP voltage is the one that like I've seen sort of vary by motherboard the most. Along with like VDDIO, well, VDDIO and VDDQ I think is actually more like might be like a BIOS tuning thing, or might just be like a motherboard manufacturer's like design style thing. Because the whole like Asrock seems to prefer them kind of high has been consistent for Asrock motherboards for me. Admittedly, I only have 2 of them, but yeah, whereas VDDP, this one like varies even between gigabyte boards. Like some gigabyte boards need it lower and high, like, well, admittedly we're talking like Tachyon versus the other gigabyte board, like the, normal gigabyte boards, but yeah, like there isn't a difference in how like the Tachyon and the Extreme, I use the same VDDQ and VDDIO on those, and that works. But I don't use the same VDDP on them. So yeah, I was kind of thinking that if something was going to go wrong, it might be this voltage, but I guess at 6200 the memory speed isn't high enough to be super sensitive to these kinds of adjustments just yet. So honestly, the VDDP might be a little bit higher than it really needs to be, but at the same time, it's not high enough to harm the CPU in any way, so I don't see any reason to worry about it or spend time trying to minimize it. Then in the actual timing configuration, we have DFE read training enabled again. Gear down mode is also enabled because this is a dual rank setup, and I kind of doubt that it'll work if I tried to turn that off. Though I haven't tested that, so I could be completely wrong about that. Anyway, timings, we've got CL28. That's why the VDD voltage is all the way at 1.52. Also, it's worth noting that, again, high voltage mode does work, which kind of makes sense considering that, if it worked on the live mixer, you would assume that it would work on, at this point, I would assume that it would work on every Asrock motherboard there is. Because it really, I think the high voltage mode being fixed now is I think it's an AGSA thing. I don't think that's each individual motherboard manufacturer having to implement high voltage mode themselves. I think now that's just implemented into the AGSA. But that's a theory on my part. I don't have confirmation of that, but yeah, so I would think high voltage mode at this point is probably fixed on all motherboards, though obviously I haven't actually, I don't have access to all the motherboards, so I can't test that, and yeah, but I haven't run into any issues with high voltage mode on any of the motherboards that I do have access to. So, at least on the newest BIOS versions, right? Obviously, on very early BIOS versions, that didn't work a lot of the time. Anyway, so yeah, CL28, which is why the VDD voltage is so high. And then we've got TRCD at 37, TRP at 32, literally the same timings as last time, but if you didn't watch the previous video, TRAS at 30, TRC at 62, because I like to just set the TRC equal to TRP plus TRAS. TRAS is at the actual register limit, and I didn't check if a slightly lower TRP would work, but I wouldn't, well, I did check, I'm not sure if it was this kit or some other kit, but I think 30 doesn't work. I didn't check 31 because I don't really see much point in incrementing timings in one tick steps. So, yeah. Anyway, TWR at 48, which is the register limit. Though again, Asrock somehow says that you can set it to 42. I'm not sure. I'm gonna assume that what happens if you do that is that the memory controller just rounds it back up to 48. Though it depends on how it's implemented, I guess. Anyway, refresh interval 65,000. 65,535, but that's the register limit, so that's completely maxed out. Refresh cycle is at 644. I think this might be a little bit high for 24 gigabit MDI, but 24 gigabit MDI, one of the sort of main differences that you'll notice from 24 gigabit MDI to 16 gigabit ADI is that 24 gigabit MDI does not do TRFC as low as 16 gigabit ADI does. So yeah, though I can't remember, I'm pretty sure this isn't as low as it could ever be, but, well, it's lower than it would be on auto, I'll tell you that much, but, yeah, and also at this point, the refresh cycle is only 1% of the actual, available clock cycles, so lowering this further isn't really going to drastically affect performance anymore. RTP at 12, because yeah, that worked last time. I wasn't going to check if it would go lower. Same for TRDL and TRDS, 12.8. Though it is worth noting that going 16 gigabit ADI can actually run say at 6200. I would expect something like 8.4 to work on 16 gigabit ADI, which isn't going to work on 24 gigabit MDI. It just isn't. It won't even post. Anyway. TFAW is at 32 because with the shortest TRRD being 8, there's no real point setting the TFAW below 32, though the register limit is supposed to be 20. I'm not sure how Asrock's BIOS is allowing you to set it to 12. I'm going to assume that it just gets rounded back up to 20 by the memory controller, but that doesn't matter because we have it at 32. Yeah, and that's just like like lowering this isn't going to improve performance. Raising it is going to make it worse. So there's really no reason, like I wouldn't raise it, and lowering it just isn't going to do anything. So 32 it is. Then we get WTRL and WTRS, which are at 16 and 4. Again, I think WTRL actually might have a chance of going slightly lower than this, but I didn't test that. Then TRD SCL is at 4, SC at 1, and then same DIM and different DIM. And this is just like a thing that I do for dual rank, is I set the same DIM and the different DIM timings to the same value, so it's easier to keep track of them. Even though technically in this configuration, the different DIM timing really shouldn't be, used, because we're in a, there's one memory stick on each channel, so there isn't a different DIM on that channel for the memory control, to use that timing with, but I find that it just sort of makes things less complicated if you just set both of the, they're technically, both of these timings affect operations to a different rank. So it's like I consider them the dual rank timings, and I set them both to the same thing. Also on Intel, there's just a straight up bug where the labeling is mixed, as in the labeling is backwards. That's not a thing with AMD. AMD, as far as I know, AMD has the labeling in the correct order, but I still think it's just easier to just set both of them to the same value than really think about as do I have two different memories? Do I have 4 memory sticks, or 2 memory sticks with a dual channel CPU? And we'll just pretend that a 7950X only has 2 memory channels. I know DDR5 has the wacky sub-channel thing. I shouldn't have mentioned that. Anyway, write-to-write SCLs at 2. Back-to-back writes just go kind of low on Hynix memory sticks, especially with AMD memory controllers. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I didn't test if it would work at 1. I did forget to mention, I did actually, after the live mixer video, I did check if 5 would work for the dual rank read-to-reads. No, it doesn't. So yeah, that didn't post on the live mixer when I tried that. I did not check if going below 8 here would work, but the write-to-write timings are less important for performance, and I do remember with certainty that they don't go as low as the read-to-read timings. So there's no, they won't even do the same value as the read-to-read timing. So even 6 isn't going to work for these. But I didn't test 7. Or if I did test 7, it was so long ago that I don't remember what the result was. It's one of the issues with my tendency not to write notes about basically anything. We'll not get into that. Anyway, write to read is at 4 and read to write is at 16. Yeah, and for the most part, I didn't do any extra work on these timings since the live mixer. I mean, I did check that these two actually are minimized, but yeah, I didn't go and try to tune any of the other timings because I mainly just kind of wanted to get this video get this test quickly done, because there is actually some other testing I want to do with the HDV. So when I saw this comment, though admittedly I only realized there's some other stuff I want to try with the HDV after I did this test, but yeah, when I read that comment, I was like, oh, this will be really easy to test. Also, I'm not sure if this voltage reading is bugged out or not. Actually, I guess we can go check with hardware info. Are we able to do that? Because the funny thing is, a lot of the time when you get a voltage reading in the BIOS or something, and then you go check with some other software, that software is still using the same sensor. So yeah, I don't know. It might also just be, maybe that's not a voltage reading, though the VDDQ value is all the way at 1.44, which doesn't make any sense. Wait, did the resolution change? Windows, why are you like this? Oh yeah, it did. No, I made it worse. Downsides of having a 4K capture card is Windows frickin'... Oh no, and now hardware info is all messed up in its scaling. Okay, well, we should still be able to read the voltage. So yeah, VDDIO is reading 1.45. So is the board just ignoring the settings? That wouldn't be the first time I've seen an Asrock board do that. It could also be bugged out. That's always the fun part with... Oh, and we don't have a VDDIO sensor. Or at least if we do have a VDDIO sensor, I don't think it's properly labeled. It could be this. And that's not so far off 1.4 volts that I'd say it's ignoring the value. Whereas this actually just looks like the motherboard is like not setting the voltage correctly. Unless... We're gonna like the other issue is like you would have noticed that the like VDD voltage itself is like reading like all over the place. Like it's supposed to be at 1.52 volts. And I think for a moment there we saw it all the way down to like 1.4 or something. I wonder if I just crank the update rate, if that's going to give us... Oh yeah, now we're seeing all kinds of... No, like we got a minimum of 1.29, which definitely didn't happen. The memory sticks would immediately crash. So this... Though, I'm not sure if the... Well, the VDDIO maxed out at like 1.5, so I guess the sensor is just like... So the thing is, if I actually wanted to check that voltage with a multimeter, I would have to pull the heat spreaders off the memory sticks, and I'm not doing that right now. I have measured the voltages on some DDR5 kits in the past, like with external equipment, because, well, actually, I wasn't really like... I just figured the sensors are glitchy. I wasn't really trying to verify if the voltage, like the software voltage readings were accurate, because my default assumption is that the software voltage readings are wrong, and if there's an issue, then they might be correct. But, yeah, no, so I can't, like, but I have measured, like, some DDR5 sticks in the past, and they, like, the fluctuations that you see in the memory voltage in like, hardware info, like, those don't happen. So I actually have no idea where they come from, because it's like the sensor is just like hallucinating the voltage moving up and down by like 30 millivolts, which, yeah, I've not measured that yet. Though I do want to do some more testing on that. At any rate, I think the VDDIO voltage regulator is... Oh no, I think Asrock has it under a heatsink. Because I was thinking I'm just going to stab it with the multimeter, right? I'll still do that, but we'll see if I can see if I can stab what I need to stab. Oh, come on. Yeah, so that is way off. That's 1.35 volts. And that's not even, like, with me being particularly accurate with the measurement methodology. Like, that was, like, I was grabbing ground off of, like, basically as far away on the motherboard as you can be. So I guess the board just kind of ignores the VDDIO setting, or the other option is that it just sets it, like, that there's, like, a permanent offset. So we'll quickly test that, because if that's happening, then I want to know about it. Not that it would really, like... I'm actually not really sure what to make of that. But yeah, so the multimeter was pretty close to 1.35 volts, and that was with me measuring from, like one of the M.2, like, I was taking ground off of one of the M.2 mounting holes, which is really far away. And the reason I bring that up is that depending on where you take your ground, and admittedly VDDIO is probably not a very high current rail, but for, say, V-Core or something, if you take your ground from, like, really far away, the voltage you're going to measure is going to be really, really high. You can easily be off by, like, 100 millivolts. So, yeah, but in this case, like, it is still a ground point on the motherboard itself, and it was pretty, like, VDDIO is not a high current rail as far as I know, so yeah, that is, oh, it's following the SOC rule. Wait a minute. Wait, is it? Because, wait, VDDIO has to be greater than VDDP plus 0.1, which it is. VDDIO plus 0.1 must be... Oh, wait, no. So it's not limited by the SOC voltage. It's just low. Man, I really don't like the way the... oh no, I forgot that this board boots so quickly. I'm not grabbing the multimeter again. Like, it doesn't work. I didn't, you know, for the video, it doesn't really... Like, I'm not set up to do that kind of thing on the fly. I wish I was, but I'm not. So, anyway, I guess we can check in hardware info. Because, like, I'm thinking there's two options here. One, the board either doesn't respect my voltage setting at all, or two, there's just a 50 millivolt offset. Oh, and now we actually just can't see anything. And I'm pretty convinced that, what was it, VN4? Yeah, so this one over here is our VDDIO. Yeah, because that's V-Core. And this is very static. So yeah, that would make sense that that is VDDIO, and it looks like it just didn't change. So I guess the board just doesn't respect the setting or something? Or maybe it is derived from SOC voltage. But if I'm reading that, what is it? Comparison statement? Like, oh wait, now it's saying 1.46. Okay, so I wasn't looking at the correct sensor. Okay, we're grabbing the multimeter again, because I am annoyed now. This is bugging me. Okay, so the voltage readout in the BIOS is accurate. So we're going to go back down to 1.4 because I want to see what it does. We're going to go back into the BIOS. I want to see what the BIOS says and what we're going to measure. And then, like, because that is weird. Now it reads 1.35. Okay, that is... Okay, well, that is extremely cursed. What happens if I set it to 1.42? So at this point, we know I'd say we know that the BIOS isn't lying about the voltage, but why is it not whatever I'm punching in? 1.35 again? Okay. I thought it'd be like, oh, it's just like a 50 millivolt offset or something, but like... Yeah, that ain't no 50 millivolt offset right there. What if we set it really low? This might not post. If I do this. Because we're currently skipping memory training. Yeah, like that wasn't a memory train. If this was memory training, we'd be waiting a lot longer, and it just... Okay, oops. I forgot I need... Like, this board boots so fast that I keep getting surprised by it. It's kind of weird. I guess maybe because it's like a low-end budget board, it has so few like auxiliary devices on it that like auxiliary controllers that initialization just like it doesn't have to initialize anything other than the CPU and the chipset and GPU. And now we get 1.3. Okay, that is actually just like what? That is actually 1.3. I still think this is actually just a sensor error. Because that's not a sensor built into the motherboard, that's a sensor on the memory stick. Okay, we're going to have to raise the cast latency for this to work. And maybe TRP as well, so we're just going to quickly... You know what? I'm not even sure that the live mixer doesn't do the same thing, because this is just not something that, like I'd be watching for. Oh, now it's going to have to go through a full memory train. Oh boy, this is going to take a while. Man, this is the thing, is like, oh, I'm going to have a nice, quick, simple, easy video. You know, just like a nice 30-minute video, and then this happens. We'll just run the stress test. It'll pass, and then we can make a video and go like, yep, that works. I mean, it does work, but like, what is this behavior? Also, now I'm like wondering, should I go back and check the live mixer as well? Does it do this too? Like, I'm not too concerned about this from the perspective. It just... So we're no longer in high voltage mode. So this is the start of high voltage mode. And like, you'll notice that this is now, you know, like, it's back to being 1.35 volts. I don't know why. I have actually no idea why. Because like when you punch in 1.3, you get 1.3. You punch in 1.45, you get 1.46, which I'm assuming is just like power plane resistance, you know. So that like being off by 10 millivolts, that's like okay. But being off by 50 is like something is happening. And actually when I punched in 1.42, we were still getting 1.35, which is off by 70 millivolts, which honestly, that just looks like the motherboard is ignoring whatever setting I'm punching in, which is incredibly strange. Um, like, how do you even set 1.35 volts on this board? Is it or like how do you set 1.4? Wait, it's going through another memory train now? Why? Oh, right, because we're switching to high voltage mode. Like, on one hand, this, like, again, this is very weird, and I don't know why I'm defending Asrock here so much, because it's like, it's not like they sent me it's not like they send me any review samples. They got extremely offended a few years ago over one of my, like, well, they weren't sending me review samples back then either, but, yeah, like, so yeah, I'm not sure why I'm defending them, because this is extremely weird, but, like, it's not, like, I don't see it as concerning from the perspective, like, you can still, you know, have perfectly stable memory overclocks on this board. It's just like, why can't I set 1.4 volts? That's so strange. Also, I'm still gonna go with that the DRAM VDDQ voltage, that's actually just bugged out, because again, the sensor for that isn't built into the motherboard, it's built into the memory stick. Because the VDDQ voltage, like, there's no, like, VDDQ doesn't go into the motherboard. It goes into the memory chips, which are on the memory stick. It does not go into the motherboard, so the motherboard basically has to ask the memory stick, hey, what voltage are you at? And the memory stick has to reply with the correct value. And I'm thinking that this is actually like the memory stick responding with an incorrect value, though I guess we could also bump it up to 1.45 and see what happens then. If it reports like 1.49 now, then I guess wackiness. You know, I'm surprised that we haven't gotten like any like overclocker focused memory sticks with like voltage read points. Then again, I don't know what you'd really use them for, because in a way, um, you don't really, especially with like the VDDQ voltage, which is a voltage that there's really no reason to like set it super high, though. And you're probably seeing exactly why there's no reason to set it super high. I'm pretty sure this just made the board like fail to post. Which would not surprise me. This is one of the easiest ways to like mess up oh, I managed to train? Wait, did it only just enable high voltage mode now? Okay, now we're getting 1.45. I'm so confused. But like in a way it doesn't really matter like what the voltage really is, because as long as it's stable and the voltage isn't so high that it's going to damage the memory sticks, you don't actually care about the absolute voltage value itself very much. But it is kind of painful if you're trying to like translate settings from one board to another board if the one of the boards is like not respecting your voltage inputs, right? So this isn't like this doesn't make it like, again, it doesn't mean the board can't do stable memory overclocks. It's just that like the voltages are like different and it's not immediately obvious. Because, yeah, that is super weird how it just stays at 1.35 VDDIO. I need to go check if the live mixer does the same thing. Because, like, I'm now wondering is, like, wait, is this some, like, wacky... Is this potentially some kind of wacky BIOS optimization from Asrock where it's like, well, we have a bunch of boards that, like, on some boards, because this used to be an option. I think it got removed. Wait, no, I think that it's tied to the XMP profile. But if I remember correctly, Asrock had and it's still 1.35 volts, so it actually just, like, does not respect whatever voltage you punch in. That is amazing. Like, it's just rounding everything down to 1.35. So my current theory is, like, it rounds down XMP level voltages to 1.35 is what I'm thinking. Oh, that's cool. But no, what I want to check is XMP. And if we enable the XMP profile... Oh, I was expecting to see a, like, voltage setting option. I'm just going to quickly restart the motherboard. I'm assuming that didn't enable the XMP profile, right? Because that's why I wanted to restart it, so that it would, like, not save the settings. Okay, that didn't do a retrain. Okay, we're still at 6200. Huh. But it used to be a thing that you had, like, a setting that was, like, VDDIO equal to VDD equal to VDDQ. And so my current theory is, like, maybe Asrock has, like, a permanent VDDIO offset of, like, everything from, like, 1.35 to, like, 1.45. Because 1.45 is a voltage you can actually get as a XMP profile on memory sticks for DDR5, right? So I'm thinking, like, well, okay, let's say Asrock figured out that on this board, or maybe all of their boards, because again, I don't remember if the live mixer doesn't do the same thing. Maybe they figured out that actually optimal VDDIO is 1.35, and so if you punch in any value that is, like, anything less than, like, 1.4... Well, actually, no, because at 1.45, it goes straight to 1.46, doesn't it? Now, I was thinking, like, maybe it's some way to, like, trick XMP profiles into working or something, but that doesn't really make a ton of sense. Yeah, no, especially when 1.45 goes to 1.46. And 1.3 goes to 1.3. Or 1.25. I need to, you know what, I'm going to go check my PCB breakdown notes. Maybe they're just using a voltage regulator that just has, like, really horrible voltage steps. Oh. No, that's the live mixer. Where's the HDV? Wait, did I not do the HDV? Really? I did no PCB breakdown of the HDV? What? Did I put it in the wrong folder? No. Huh. Well, that's fun. Anyway, we're just going to go back into the BIOS, because we've already figured out that I actually don't know what the voltage in hardware... Well, I think it might be V4. It doesn't matter. We'll just check in the BIOS. Like, I'm wondering, okay, maybe they have a voltage regulator that has, like, no, because it doesn't do 1.4. Like, it just skips 1.4. I'm, like, 50 millivolt steps or something, but, like, no. It's like they have a rule that everything between 1.35 and 1.45 gets rounded down to 1.35. That's what it looks like right now to me. Right? Because like 1.44 is 1.35, 1.42 is 1.35, 1.4 is 1.35, 1.35 is 1.35. But then you said something like 1.25, 1.3, and those become 1.25 and 1.3. So those aren't doing anything weird. And I'm assuming 1.26 also becomes 1.26. It doesn't like stay 1.25 or become 1.23, right? Yeah, 1.26 is 1.26. 1.28, I'm assuming, is also 1.28. So that is so weird. Why would you do that? See, this is the next, like, so this is why I consider Asrock and like Gigabyte to be the two jankiest in terms of BIOSes. Because Asrock does stuff like this. And Gigabyte has their own weird jank, and recently I haven't really had any weird jank with Gigabyte. Have I? Oh no, ECLK is broken again on the last AM5 BIOS I used with a 8 GB board. The ECLK overclocking was broken again, but as in like if you tried to turn the ECLK overclocking on, the board just wouldn't post, which very cool. But yeah, anyway, 1.33 is 1.33, but 1.37 I'm assuming is 1.35. But yeah, so like Gigabyte will have like things being broken and stuff like that. And then there's Asrock where you get stuff like this. Which just makes... But why? Like it really looks like there's just like a rule that any voltage between 1.35 and 1.45, right? So like 1.44 is like like they all just get set to 1.35, which is like evidently it works, right? Like I was passing the stress test and everything, but like why would you do that? Because like if say 1.4 volts actually isn't stable, right? Then I could have just like lowered the voltage myself. Okay, Windows is being Windows, so we're just gonna force shut down the motherboard. It might have gotten, like, the system might have gotten unstable with me messing around with the voltages and not retraining, like, at all. Yeah, 1.42 is 1.35. That is absolutely just, like... Yeah, like they just have a, like as far as I can tell, they just have a rule that everything between 1.35 and 1.4, like up to like from 1.35 up to 1.44, everything is actually just 1.35. Why would they do this? I don't really know. It doesn't make any sense to me. But it's Asrock. They do a lot of things that don't make any sense to me. Actually, speaking of things that, well, okay, one of them makes sense to me, but annoys me to no end. Is the following, right? So we're going to go back into the BIOS. And so if I set the memory speed to 6,000, right, you'll see that UCLK equals MCLK. If I set the speed to 6,200, suddenly it gets UCLK MCLK divided by 2. If I set that back to UCLK equals MCLK and I set 6,400, it gets set back to UCLK equals MCLK divided by 2. If I turn it back to UCLK equals MCLK and I set it to 6,200 again, it gets divided by, like I can understand why they're doing this, but it's annoying. And like I've had at least one instance recently where I set DDR5-6200 and I ran like several hours of a stress test before realizing that the memory controller was running at half speed. Like, the reason they're doing this is it improves compatibility with memory kits at the cost of performance, but, you know, if, like somebody buys a DDR5 6400 memory kit, chances are, like, there's a decent chance their CPU isn't going to be able to run that in UCLK equals MCLK, and so from a idiot proofing perspective, it's better if the board just like autos to it, but I wish there was a way to just like turn that off. Right? Because like you sometimes forget to like undo what the BIOS is automatically setting, and then then you end up running several hours of a stress test with settings that are extremely slow because the memory controller is running at half speed. I mean at half clock. It doesn't literally cut the memory bandwidth in half. If it did, it would be completely unusable. It doesn't do that, but yeah, it does slow the memory controller down quite a bit. Not literally in half though. It's not that bad. And anyway, so yeah, the VDDIO voltage on this board is very strange. And yeah, that is very weird. And now you know what? I guess I could just check my video with the live mixer to see if the live mixer was doing that as well. Because evidently these voltage sensors in the BIOS are pretty accurate, right? Like they match the multimeter pretty well. So yeah, if the live mixer was also reading 1.35, then I guess the live mixer also has that rule of like anything between 1.35 from a 1.35 up to 1.44 is actually just 1.35. But what doesn't make sense to me is like if you set it to 1.46, it goes to 1.45, you get 1.46, right? Which is like why are you not able to set 1.4 volts? Oh well, Asrock things. Wacky Asrock things. Super weird. I wonder if it's specific to this BIOS version. It might be. But anyway, so yeah, so this video has gone completely off track, but hopefully it was somewhat interesting, if not particularly useful. And yeah, I mean, I still stand by the like memory settings that I showed here, and that like yeah, it worked. I just worked at somewhat different voltages than I thought it was working at. But like again, the voltages were perfectly safe, right? The VDDIO was actually lower than I thought it was, but yeah, that's wacky Asrock things. It's a good thing that this wacky Asrock thing doesn't affect performance or stability. Well, it doesn't affect stability. I have heard that in like, and I think this is more of a concern for Gear 2 than for Gear 1, that in some scenarios having like the VDDI voltage slightly too low can cause like performance issues rather than outright instability. But I haven't run into that myself yet. Anyway, so yeah, hopefully this video was at least interesting, if not particularly useful. And I guess thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. If you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, I have a Patreon. There's a link to that down in the description below. There's also the HOC Teespring store where you can pick up shirts, hoodies, posters, you know, the usual YouTuber merch. And I've also got a Bandcamp. There's a link to that down in the description below as well. And that's it for the video. So thank you for watching and goodbye.